Japanese brown and tan applied hot to a large sheet. In this video, we're going to use the Japanese brown and tan on a big sheet of steel. Now first we'll use the orbital sander with a 180 grit pad, and then we'll degrease it with some isopropyl alcohol and a Scotch-Brite pad. Once we've degreased it, we'll start with the Japanese brown. You can see we're already torching it and applying it in the corner here. And the trick to Japanese brown is getting it up to temperature. It needs to be about 180 degrees, and if it's colder, that's okay. It just doesn't react quite with the intensity. So you'll see here I'm trying to preheat a section, and I just go in sections. Ultimately, if it's not quite as hot, you'll see it pool there on the surface, and that's okay. It's just going to give us a little bit of different look, and ultimately that's going to be better for a bigger sheet, in my opinion. If you're going for a smooth, completely uniform finish, this is not the process for you. On hot patinas, it will traditionally be more mottled. So that's what I'm expecting to get out of this entire sheet, is something very mottled and very weathered looking. You can see I'm not quite up to temperature on a lot of this. We're usually around, if I had to guess, 140, 150 degrees. So we're warmer, which is good. It's given us that darker, rusty Japanese brown feel, but we're not at 180. In some areas I will be, and that'll give us a different look. And that's what I'm hoping for, is a lot of different shades, a lot of different modeling with this. Ultimately, I didn't want to go super hot, one, because it takes a long time for a big piece, and I wanted to do this as realistically if you were trying to repeat this, if you were trying to do a big sheet. So I'm kind of moving a little quicker, not getting it all the way up to temperature, but also I have it sitting on a wooden pallet, and I didn't want any problems there. Now, the Japanese brown is fine on its own. We could just stop right at Japanese brown and seal it and be done with it. Ultimately, I prefer to do a little bit more to it, kind of add more depth to it. So it all depends on what your customer or what you want to do is where you can stop. But I'm going to move forward and use some of the tan as well. But first, once I get this all completely patinaed and no steel is showing through, I'm going to put some water on it. And it's going to be okay, because if it rusts, it's rusty already, so I'm not too worried about it. But ultimately, I'm going to put some water on it and wipe it with clean white paper towels. So you see, I'll just do it in this corner here just for you to see. And the goal for this is to get off some of those really dark, heavy spots. And you can see I'm getting a lot of it coming off already. And I don't want to use a Scotch-Brite or anything like that. I don't want to burnish it and pull too much off, but I wanted to kind of soften it up a little bit. I'll go ahead and give this a fan with the hand so we can get the water evaporating a little quicker. And you'll see it comes in a little bit more mute or a little dull, but it's less mottled as well. It just takes kind of that high points off. And here we'll go ahead and use the tan. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I like to do the tan with a 50% mixture. That's 50% tan, 50% distilled water. 100% would work fine. In my opinion, it's just a little too strong, and it works really a little bit better if we dilute it down. Now you'll see I go ahead and heat it up again. I'm not getting quite up to 180 like we did with the Japanese brown, but we're getting up to warm enough for the tan to work. And you'll see some of those areas kind of in the middle there where you have a little bit more rust coming through. That will happen as you heat it a little bit more. So here we're going to go back with the Japanese brown and reheat it and respray it. And you can see it comes in a lot more of an orangey rust rather than that dark plum rust. So, and this is where you have to decide what your customer wants or what you want and what kind of rust you want. So the Japanese brown on its own is fine, but for me, I like this lighter, kind of more fresh rust. So here we can go in with the Japanese brown and just kind of recoat it. And the more you do, the darker it will go. So you can see we've got it really light right now, but if we kept going layer after layer, it would look more like the Harvey the Rabbit. That has another video. If you want to see how that one's done, you can find that on our YouTube channel, and it's just a darker version essentially, but we wanted to keep it nice and light for this one. When the hot process comes into play for a bigger sheet, a lot of people ask how to do it. And so that's what I was hoping to show here is you just start in one area. Pick one area and move from there. You heat up that area, you spray it on, you move to the next one. And that's what I'm trying to show here. You can see I don't even go to the end there. I'm just going to come back right over here and we're going to get it to blend in. You have to overlap just a little bit, but you can see it smooths right in. Doesn't even look like I was working on sections. So ultimately that's what you need to do is just pick an area, 2x2 or 3x3, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever the patina calls for, and start working from there. Now once I get all this coated, I'm going to show another trick that I like to do, and this is one that I've recently kind of figured out and started doing more and more. Ultimately, I'm going to let it cool down, just completely down to room temperature, and I want to apply a coat of Japanese brown on its own, just right on top of everything we've done. And ultimately, Japanese brown on its own traditionally will be very rugged, rusty, but we're not going to get it we're not going to get that dotting that comes along with it. So here we're going to go and just do a full coat of Japanese brown on top of the surface. And what this does when you do this kind of process when it's hot is it kind of pulls everything together a little bit more. So it's not going to make everything uniform, but right now we've got everything kind of almost, it's really not splotchy, but really modeled and a lot of different movements going on. And what the cold process is going to do is kind of just bring everything together and make it look like one piece. And I'm not going to rinse this, so it will take a couple days for the Japanese brown to finish what it's going to do. So I can't clear coat for a few days, but ultimately I think it's going to be worth it. So you can see we went from something really modeled to kind of pulls it together and really looks, I'm pretty happy with this. It looks really good. And we've got a little bit of dotting from the tan that I think it kind of just steps it up a little bit. And here's a picture from it in our warehouse. And here's our final piece of Japanese brown and tan on a large sheet. Japanese brown and tan are both available at www.sculptnouveau.com.